everybody, and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their hearts. With your hosts, us, it's Ariel and...
Raylene. Hello. I like the way you ushered me in with your hands.
For those video watchers, I did a little throwing it to Raylene move.
Mm-hmm.
I also am having a very beautiful little sunset moment over here.
Ooh,
so,
I was going to say, the light that's hitting you is quite nice.
I know, right? I'm feeling pretty romantic tonight. More in the traditional sense, less in the flirty way.
Thanks for clarifying.
Before I scare you, Raylene, how are things over on the West Coast?
Good. Freezing cold. Cold. But that's all I'll say about that. Yeah, April is somehow, it's still freezing cold. But what I wanted to talk about today, actually, before we get into everything, I need a new podcast to listen to because you want to know what happened. So a couple of months ago, my favorite podcast of all time, My Dad Wrote a Porno, ended and put out their last episodes. That show is now over. Okay. And then last week I was listening to the only other podcast I listened to, If I Were You, Jake and Amir's podcast. Yeah. And they've just announced that they're ending their podcast too. There's only a few episodes left and then they're finishing the show.
I didn't know that. Wow.
I know. I was really scared because for the past week or so, I've just been catching up on their episodes because it's been a while since I listened to them. So I listened to 20 and suddenly I got all the way caught up and they were like, the show is ending for real. This is not a joke because they joke about it all the time. But I was like, what? What do you mean? So now I'm taking it, putting the floor to you and to our listeners. I would love a new podcast. I particularly like comedy podcasts, as you can tell by the two that I like listening to. But I'm not opposed to other genres like true crime. A narrative podcast might be cool. I've never listened to one like that before.
Interesting.
So that's just something I wanted to put out to the people because I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? Just listen to audiobooks only? I can't let that be my life. I like podcasts too.
That's very interesting. First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah,
that
it's
does
really
sound
sad.
very difficult. And as you know, Raylene, my brother who edits the podcast, Jake and Amir here. I was about to say here I am, but that podcast is his favorite as well. So this is a devastating blow for many of my favorite people, I guess.
Yeah.
Scary.
I almost texted him the other day, have you heard the news yet? But then I forgot to do it. So sorry if this is how you're finding out, CJ.
Okay, so this is really funny because I was talking to my friend the other day and I was like, on my favorite podcast, and she was like, oh my God, wait, you probably have some really fun podcast recommendations. Yeah. Could you name some for me? And I was like, oh, no.
You just listen to one or two, right?
I only listen to one. So the first podcast I ever discovered was Mugglecast. This was back in literally, I want to say 2011. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so long ago. And it was, as you can guess, a Harry Potter podcast. Mm-hmm. It was when the books were still coming out.
That's true. That would have been an interesting time.
Yeah, so it was basically just guessing about the books and stuff is when the podcast started. And then it was about the movies coming out and how all of the news and everything related to it. Mm-hmm. So it was that for me was podcasting. I was like, I don't need another podcast. Yeah. I have Mugglecast. That's all I need. Then I probably listened to that podcast as my only podcast for literally 7 years or so. You know what I mean? I was like, what else do I need? And then, or probably for 2 or 3 years, and then I just stopped listening to podcasts. And then this other podcast fell into my life, which I mentioned to you. I've mentioned on the podcast before a lot, is the Unmade podcast. Yeah. I love the Unmade podcast. The only problem with the Unmade podcast is that it doesn't come out every week. Oh, okay. But it comes out a little sporadically. I feel like it comes out, most of the time it comes out every other week, but a lot of the time it's a month has gone by and they didn't do one.
Oh, man. Yeah, lack of consistency can be hard for a listener, for sure.
Yeah. If you are new to it, though, you have 150 episodes to listen to, though, so it'd probably be fine. I think that you should give it a shot because if you like Jake and Amir, which is just two guys joking around together, not very much structure, mainly just them being funny. Yeah. I feel like you would maybe like the Unmade podcast, which is two Australian guys being funny together.
Even better.
And their accent is the creme de la creme. Like half of me listening is just me wooing over their beautiful accents.
Well, that's how I felt when I first started My Dad Wrote a Porno as well. Like it's so funny and just like they're British. No, they're British. Oh, and they're just like their humor is obviously different from our humor. And so it's just like just crazy in the best way possible. I actually recently re-listened to the entire podcast leading up to the newest episodes because I was like, you know what, I need something good in my life, and so let's just listen to this podcast again. And it holds up. It's still just as funny, if not funnier. So highly recommend that to anybody who hasn't listened to it yet.
So with the Unmade podcast, they were best friends in grade school.
I love that.
And that, like, they met in, like, grade 7 or something. Like, they went to the same school together. And then they went to high school together. And that's where they, like, solidified that they were best friends. But then one of them moved to England. Oh. And so now they're long-distance best friends, like you and me.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, they started this podcast together. And it's so cute because they talk about their hometown, Adelaide, a lot. But, like... So few people from over here have been to Adelaide.
Yeah, so it's like not relatable.
They're talking about all of these references, and they even know that it makes no sense for them to talk about it so much, but they just can't stop.
I love that.
And it's just really, really cute. And the concept of that podcast is basically like every episode, they both come to the podcast with an idea for a podcast that they could make.
Yeah.
And so they're like, this week my idea for a podcast is a podcast where we review books together. And then they talk about it. But really they make them into jokes and like just a launching point for like an anecdote or a conversation or whatever. But you just listen to it and you're like, that would never work. And so you get a little involved in it. It's a lot of fun.
Here's my question for you. Do you think I should go back to the very first episode or are there like highlights that would be good entry points for a new time listener?
That's a really, really good question. I honestly think you should go to the first one because I didn't feel like the quality definitely does get better. Like by episode 10, they know how to podcast. So you could probably do that. But I don't feel like they're ever bad.
Yeah, I'm okay with starting at the beginning.
One of the hosts, Brady, he's a YouTuber.
Okay.
So he already is like very comfortable with talking and on recording and everything. And the other co-host is a preacher. Oh, and so he's also very good at chatting.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Like they're both speakers, so it's never awkward.
Okay, cool.
They do get funnier though. As like I think we have as well. Like our first few episodes, they're a little awkward to listen to, but just because you have to get used to the flow.
Yeah. It's a strange thing to be doing, and it takes a while to get comfortable.
I'm sure you'll post a photo or something to the Instagram, and people can give us recommendations there.
Yeah, because I need that. I really do.
I feel like a lot of the time, the listeners to this podcast, to Books Unbound, know our tastes pretty well, and so they probably would know some recs for things that you would listen
for sure. Yeah, like I get a lot of good movie recommendations from people in our Discord, and a lot of times they'll be like, have you seen this movie? I think you'd really like it. And a lot of the times I'm like, yes, I have seen that and I do love that movie, so like you get me. But
exactly.
I haven't really reached out for podcast recs before, so this is such a big world that I honestly don't know that much about, which is kind of funny. There's just so many out there. I don't even know where to begin.
There is. It's a huge world. Okay, well, over here, when I tell you, Raylene, that I had one of the most beautiful days of my life today. It was just so pretty. Like, not to make you feel bad about how cold it is over there, but it was like 12 degrees, and in the sun, it was literally so hot that I took my jacket off.
Oh my God.
I was like, I don't need this jacket. I feel hot. So basically, this is silly. So basically today it was going to be a bit of a work day. So I woke up and I was working, and then I realized I forgot a really important file that I needed at home. And so I texted my dad, but he wasn't awake yet because obviously they're 4 hours behind. And so I was like, okay, well, I wait for him because he'll help like send me this file. This is the second file I've forgotten.
Shoot.
And I'm just like, oh my God, what files did I bring?
Yeah. Did you come prepared at all? Like, come on.
Apparently not. But I was like, he'll help me, like he'll get onto my computer and I'll tell him how to put it on my Google Drive or whatever. But, which by the way, what a miracle. Google Drive. Whew, wow.
Yeah. Saved us more than once.
Saved us. Yeah, it really has. But while I was waiting that, I was looking at the other things I needed to do, and I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, it's already April. I need to post my vlog for our Patreon, right? Because I missed it by a couple days. I was like, how did time go so quickly? So I was like, okay, wait. I was going to do like a little fun London adventure. Like, I was like, I'm here, I'll do something cute. And I was like, what can I do? And I was like, okay, what I'll do is I will buy a book on Click and Collect. So basically, Waterstones, their big bookstore chain here, does a thing called Click and Collect. I think maybe it's what a lot of stores call. They're like curbside pickup.
Yeah.
We call it curbside pickup. But basically, like, you order it online, and then within 2 hours, it will be ready to pick up.
Yeah.
And I was like, perfect. So I ordered it, and then, like, literally it was 15 minutes later. They were so fast.
Wow.
They're like, your book is ready. And I was like, okay, great. I'll just go and pick it up. And I'm vlogging this whole thing, right? So I'm, like, vlogging buying it and ordering it and getting the email, and now I'm walking. First of all, it was just the prettiest day that has ever happened on the history of the earth. That's what I keep saying. It was just so sunny, and the birds were chirping, and the children were laughing, and the flowers were blooming, and I was wearing my new pretty dress, and I was like, you know what? Life's not so bad. And then I get to the bookshop, and I buy the book, and I'm like vlogging it, and then I buy myself a cheese sandwich, and it was the cheesiest cheese sandwich I've ever had, and it was so delicious, and I ate it in a park. And then I saw on the map there, not even on the map, sorry. Like, I saw on my way home, I was like starting to walk back home, and I saw some people like descending some like stairs that took them down into like a park thing. And I was like, I bet you that sort of takes me the right way.
Okay.
And I start descending the stairs, and I see that I'm in the canals. And I was like, oh my God. And I see people, basically like hugging. Everyone was like hugging. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like that. No one was actually hugging, but it just felt like we were all hugging. And
romantic canal.
It was so beautiful, and it was so sunny, and everyone, you could just tell it was one of these first proper days of spring, and everyone was just enjoying it. And I was like, I'm just going to sit on this bench and read, maybe just for a little bit. I sat there for over an hour. I was just so blissed out.
Amazing.
And by the time I got home, this little mission that I thought was going to be like an hour long, I was out for like 3 hours. I was like having my cute little sandwich, so much cheese. I did fear the cheese when I got home. I was like, because this is so stupid. When I was coming home, I was like nearly home, and there was a McDonald's. I had to walk directly next to it. And I was like, I could do a strawberry milkshake.
Terrible
and so
idea.
I did. And then I was like, wait, I had a whole cheesecake. Or not cheesecake.
Can you imagine that
cheese sandwich.
On top of everything.
And I had, like, I had half of a strawberry milkshake. Because I was like, I have some semblance of self-preservation. Yeah. My poor little lactose buddy. I came home, took some lactose enzyme pills. I was
You're still alive somehow.
To fight this. But I just had such a pretty day. And now I'm ending off the day by talking to you. Not a bad day, Raylene. Not a bad day.
I want to know what book you bought.
Okay.
I think you should tell us before we move on to anything else.
Well, I can start with my haul, because I do have some books to haul. I have 4 books to haul.
That's more like it. Last week we only got one. I knew that we were going to get some more.
Yeah. We'll start with the one that I just picked up. And so if you want to see this vlog of my pretty day in London, that is on our Patreon now. So this one is Love in the Big City by Sang Young Park.
I remember that one. And that's the good cover.
I think this is fun. It's such a good cover. I think this is a lot of fun because I always say the big city. And so the fact that it's called Love in the Big City really brings me a lot of joy. Love the cover, and as you will remember, and maybe some of our peeps will recall, this was longlisted last year for the International Booker Prize. Yeah. So that's where we kind of found out about it. But recently, I've seen like 3 people that I follow on Instagram reading it. And it's made me want it. I'm like, wait, they're reading it. I want it.
Jealous.
So this sounds really, really good. Let me see who it was translated by. Anton Her. I feel like I recognize
I definitely recognize that name. I feel like there's like 4 or 5 translators that just keep popping up. And
they're famous.
we know them now.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I don't see like his biography though, so yeah, peeps can look him up.
He translated Cursed Bunny as well.
That's it.
And I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki. There you go. He's
that's
the guy.
Probably where we're recognizing him from.
He's the dude that does it all.
All right. Yesterday, I also had such a happy day. I went to the zoo. I love the zoo. I'm a huge zoo fan.
Yeah,
I feel like that makes a lot of sense with my personality for some reason.
Yeah, you love giraffes. That's something I know about you.
I do really love
Did you see giraffes?
You know what's funny about Oh, yeah. Did I ever?
Thank God.
I saw 3 giraffes.
Whoa.
You know, it's funny. The morning that I was going to the zoo, like we went to the zoo at like around 1 or whatever, but that morning at 5 a.m., I got an email from the place that I donate money to save giraffes.
Yes, of course.
It's a giraffe charity. I did research on which one is the best giraffe charity to support. And of course, now the name is leaving me, but I will put the information. Why not? I'll put the information in the show notes. So if you want to donate to giraffes, you also can, because I did the research. I remember I took a day. I was like, I want to donate to giraffes. I want to donate to the most effective charity, and this is the one that I found. But anyways, love the giraffes. Anyway, and I got an email from them the same morning I was like, this seems planned. This seems
like they knew you were going to go support some giraffes in real life.
I know.
Did you see meerkats? Sorry to interrupt, but meerkats are
I did.
My favorite thing that I saw at a zoo this past year.
I did, and literally probably my second favorite that I saw.
They're the happiest, weirdest little boys.
Yes,
I love them so
They're
much.
so happy. They remind me of my dog, Doug, for some reason.
I can definitely see that.
You can see that, right?
Yeah.
And I loved him because I'll post a photo. Honestly, I'll post some photos of my trip to the zoo because I was just so jolly and happy. Some meerkat and giraffe photos. But I love meerkats because whilst lots of them are playing, one is on lookout. And I really respect that. I respect that one of them is on duty. Like, you guys have fun while I take care of everything going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Here. But we were walking around and we had lunch, or we had a Sunday roast, a beautiful, delicious lunch here in Camden Town. This is for literally just people that know London. And then we were walking down to the zoo. And so we had to walk through this really nice area called Primrose Hill. And we walked past this charity shop, which is like their thrift stores.
Yeah.
And we popped in. It was so beautiful. So I got 2 things there that I need to show you. The first, and you've already seen these, right?
Okay.
But the first one is Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, in this really lovely little hardcover edition. It was only £5, so I felt very good about that. And so basically I was there with my friend Claire, and she said that she likes Shirley more than she likes Jane Eyre, which is a pretty controversial thing to say, but we talked about this on our live show yesterday that we do for our patrons, and some people there were also saying that. So I really want to check this out for sure, and I like my little copy of it.
Yeah, it's a very cute
copy. And then the other thing I got there, that was a little tissue paper ASMR for everyone, was a little model of a house. It's a tiny little ceramic house. It's the happiest thing I've ever seen. It was £2. I was like, yes, I will be bringing that to my home.
Course.
So that's going to go on my bookshelf for sure. And I will definitely post a photo of that to the Instagram. Okay, before that, the day before then, literally every day, so much is going on. Maybe a little too much. But anyway, someday before then, I went to the Foyles on the South Bank.
Yes.
And I got this book, Raylene. I've never heard of it. I'm curious if you have. The Red Arrow.
I don't think I have.
By William Brewer. So it's got a very cool kind of moire is the word, cover, like a little visual illusion of these lines that if you stare at them a little too long, you get dizzy.
Yeah.
Listen to, I've never heard of this. I did have the very, very, very satisfying thing that happens when you go to a bookshop and you're paying for it, and the bookshop person says to you, I love that book.
That's good.
That feels good. But not only did he say that, he said to me, this is the best book I read last year. And I was like, whoa. You can't just throw stuff like that around.
That's awesome.
So here's what it says on the back of it. When a once promising young writer agrees to ghostwrite a famous physician's memoir, his livelihood is already in jeopardy. Plagued by debt, he's grown distant from his wife, a successful AI designer, and is haunted by an overwhelming sense of dread. Then things get worse. The physicist vanishes, leaving everything in limbo, including our narrator's sanity.
Ooh.
Oh no!
That sounds cool. I like anything that has to do with AI.
It does sound
So
cool.
that's interesting.
Yes, exactly. So I like that the wife character, is it the wife or did it say? Yes, distant from his wife. So an AI designer wife, he's ghostwriting, which is also a topic I find interesting. I like the cover. The guy said it was the best book you read last year. I've got a lot of good things going on in this book, I think. There you go.
Very cool.
All right. And then the final book that I got, this is really strange. I want to know what you think of this cover, okay? It's called Waiting for Ted by Mariek Big. Look at this cover. Right?
I love it. It's so strange.
So it's one of these covers that has like a cutout.
Yeah.
It has two circles as a cutout. I'm going to try and describe this for our listeners, but two circles that are cut out, but the photo on the cover is a photograph of a woman, like a 1950s woman holding a pie.
Yeah. And she looks manically happy. Like she looks maniacally, I should
thrilled.
say. Yeah.
Like it's the best pie she's ever made and she loves her life and her pie. But then these big circles have been cut out of her face.
Yeah, makes her look
these
bug-like.
Giant, it makes her look like a bug or like something's gone horribly wrong. So it's a very it's a strange little cover.
It's a little spooky. And also the title combined with that, like Waiting for Ted, it makes it look like she's waiting for him to bake him into a pie or something like it. She's giving me a vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So listen to how perfect this sounds for me. Waiting for Ted charts the destruction of Rosalind and Ted's relationship at the hands of an expensive chaise lounge. Rosie dreams of being a traditional housewife to her big, strong working man. But she also needs to fill her house with things that she can Instagram. Oh. So when Ted bans her from spending any more of her father's money, she begins to scheme, only to watch her schemes unravel and the rest of her life with them.
Whoa.
And it says, in a series of reflections over the course of one evening spent waiting for Ted. So she's waiting for her husband to come back, and I think she's bought this really expensive thing she wasn't supposed to buy, but she's also an Instagrammer, and that's why she justifies all these purchases, because she's like, I need content. So I think it sounds really cool.
Super cool.
I think this sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm always looking for that social media novel.
The one that changes it all.
The one that changes it all, and I feel like this sounded like a fun idea. The last line of the synopsis is, it becomes increasingly clear to the reader that Ted may not be coming home at all.
Oh my goodness. Such a thriller.
Yeah, so I read the prologue and the first page of because it's like 3 pages, the first page of the chapter, first chapter, and she's talking about like her favorite Instagrammer and how she really wants to be like her and stuff, and so it's just like, it's like really stressful. It was really stressful in a really beautiful, interesting, like fun way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there you go, that's my little stack of books. I feel happy with this stack because I feel like these are fun titles, some of which I wouldn't have found at home.
Yeah, definitely.
But not that many. Like, this is like, that's not.
Are you planning on going out book shopping again before you head home?
Yes. But I don't want to get many more. So I'm like, I could see myself buying 1 or 2 more books, but I also could see myself, like, I have actually gone to a lot of bookshops on this trip and not bought anything.
That's awesome.
Like, most of the bookshops I've gone to, I'm looking around and I'm like, that was a nice shop.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Being able to go into a store and not feel like you have to buy something that's growth. That's growth. 'Cause when I go to a bookstore, most of the time I end up buying at least one thing. And when I'm buying one book, I'm like, well, I have to buy at least 2. Like, for some reason, that's something that exists in my mind. But I think we've both been really good about buying books this year so far.
I think that this has not been that bad of a. It's when you can. Okay, this year I've been to 2 of the same cities I went to last year, New York and London. And last time when I was in New York, I bought like 12 books, and then when I was in the UK last time, I bought like 12 books or something. Yeah. This time I bought 2 books in New York, and so far I've bought 4 or 5 books in the UK. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this is much more
controlling things. Yeah, you're keeping it controlled. Well, while we're on the topic of buying books, I actually do have a couple of books to haul as well.
Oh, and, fun!
This is purely because I have a large want list at my local used bookstore, and they called me for 2 books that came in. So I ended up getting both of them because they're both books that I wanted. The first one was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy.
Oh,
so
very
happy
cool.
to finally own that. So that also, I love being able to add a book to my collection. It's like, I've already read that. That is not adding to my TBR pile at all. And then
that doesn't add to the problem.
Exactly. That's the reason I try not to buy too many books, because like, well, I have so many to read already.
Yeah.
And then the other book I got is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, which is the first
I don't know
book.
Anything about that.
Yeah, this is the first book in her, I don't know how you pronounce it, Scholomance series, and it's just like kind of dark academia, magic school vibes, and I don't really know anything about the plot other than that general description, because one of my friends read the entire trilogy and really enjoyed it and was like hyping it up to me. So I was like, you know what, I'll give the first one a try. I've been wanting to read more fantasy, and she reads almost exclusively fantasy, so I was like, okay, this is a good recommendation, and I'll go for it. So yeah, it also has a very beautiful like inner
the end papers.
Like, check this out.
Oh yeah,
it's very nice.
Yeah,
it's not beautiful. Really it's kind of a map, but it's like an unusual map, but it's very cool. Yeah, I have taken a photo of that for the Instagram so that people will be able to see.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, that's it. That's my haul. Just 2 books.
That's a good haul. Yeah, that's a good
pretty
haul.
Solid little haul.
I still don't own the Jeanette McCurdy one, so
yeah, you got to request it at a used bookstore and then just wait. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's not a bad. That's a very interesting system. You've done that for years, obviously.
That's what
I've never done that before.
It's true. Yeah, I love new books, but sometimes, and especially in cases like this where I've already read the book, so there's really no rush for me to get it. I'm happy to wait, and it'll come in eventually. Like, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't want to own that book anymore for whatever reason, and yeah. And there's a huge wait list for it at the bookstore, but I think I might have been near the top of the list. I always buy whatever they find for me, so I think they like me at that store.
They're like, just call her up, she'll come.
do it.
All right, well, let's talk about what we've read and what we're reading. So I'm excited because I finished my book, which I said I would do. I finished A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers lives in California with her wife. She's best known for the Wayfarer series, which starts with the book The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which was originally crowdfunded on Kickstarter in 2012. A Psalm for the Wild Built was published in 2021, and the sequel came out in 2022. And the series has been described as solar punk and hope punk. So, like I talked about last week, I was really enjoying this book, and I was really hoping that I was gonna like really love it when I finished it, and I did. Yeah. So here's what I would say. I would say that there was a bit of a dip in the middle. I really liked the start. You meet our main character, whose name is Dex, and I think a big part of like the little tension I was having with the book was just that I am not used to reading science fiction or fantasy.
Yeah, I get that.
And so there's certain things in the book that were just like dragging me down a little bit, like descriptive. Like a big part of this universe is this religion thing that's going on. I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care about it while I was reading it, and it would sometimes go into little paragraphs of like, this is how this works, and this is what this god believes in. And I was like, I don't, Chal and Alalai and stuff, names like that, where I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
It just gets a little too far out.
A little too far out. But basically, I still don't fully understand if this is supposed to be on our moon, like Earth's moon, or just a completely different planet. They are humans. Like, they talk about them being humans, so I wasn't really sure. I couldn't really understand. But let's just say that it takes place on our moon. That also confused me, because they're all just humans. They don't talk about there being an atmosphere problem.
Right, they're just walking
So I was
around.
like, they're just walking around. So I was like, did they figure that out? That doesn't seem like something they could have figured out. So I still feel like maybe they're on Earth. Hard to know. Anyways, so basically the idea is that like 200 years ago, they were in the middle of something called the factory age, similar to our like industrial age, right? Where it's just like a lot of industrialization and stuff, but the difference being that they're all done by robots. It was this huge robot workforce. One day, for a reason nobody can explain, the robots kind of gained consciousness, and they were like really nice about it, thankfully.
It wasn't bad.
It wasn't so bad. They were like, we no longer want to work for you guys. We know that you created us and everything, but that's kind of irrelevant now. We are conscious and we don't want to live here. What we want to do is go into the wild. And so they got up and left. By doing that, they obviously kind of destroyed human society, because there was such a huge long period where humans were just dependent on robots making stuff. So they had to kind of start from scratch. Like humans had to start from scratch a little bit. And it ended up being a much more eco-friendly version of things, where they're like, well, we're not going to depend on technology because it could gain consciousness again.
Could happen again, guys.
It could happen again. So the robots were like, we want to go somewhere that wasn't designed by humans. We're going to the wild. And then this story, A Psalm for the Wild Bill, is set like I said, like 200 years later.
Oh, okay.
So no one's really seen a robot in a really long time. No one really knows what the robots are up to. And our main character, Dex, is like talking about the robots. Like they come up, but they're not very important to society or civilization. So the first part of the book is us learning about this character, Dex, and they're a monk.
Okay.
This is where all that religion comes in, and I was just like, okay. So basically there's this big religious order, and they're having an existential crisis. Dex doesn't really know what they want their whole point of living to be and stuff. And so they decide to do a hard pivot, because they had been like a gardening monk. Oh. And so much of the stuff, I was like, why couldn't they have just been a gardener? Like, why did it have to be a gardening monk? But whatever. So they'd been a gardening monk. Now they wanted to be a tea monk. Ooh. So this is a person who like travels around these city-states. You know what's so funny about this, Raylene? When most of the books I read, I'm just like, it was a woman who hates her job. This is like so complicated because it's sci-fi fantasy. There's like 40 different things going on. Okay, so the tea monks travel around in their little caravans, and they like give tea to people, and basically like people can come to them with their problems, and the tea monks will like give them custom tea. So what you can imagine is that this whole first part of the book was very peaceful and calm and very beautiful. Like, yes, our main character was having like these existential troubles, but it was all coming out through this tea ceremonies and stuff, and it was very cute and calm, and basically like I was gonna mention this. It's like alternative living. You know, I was always looking for books that are like people that live in vans or people that live in boats or in yurts or something. This is that. This was a person who lives in their little caravan and is just traveling around. Yeah, so that was really fun. Then they decide to go into the woods for some reason. They're like, I'm still not happy. I want to go into the woods and see what's in there and go to this temple I know that used to be there hundreds of years ago. Yeah. And while they're doing that, they run into a robot. And the robot is like, hello. How are you? Do you need help? And it's just so pure. So the second part of the book is like these two characters getting to know each other and seeing like how their goals align. And then the third part of the book is like them on an adventure. The middle part I didn't like, and here's why. I felt like Becky Chambers was trying to make there be tension between the two characters. Like, Dex doesn't like the robot, but there's no reason why someone wouldn't like this robot. The robot was so beautiful and pure and friendly. Yeah. Its name is Mosscap.
I love that.
I know, and he's so sweet, and he loves helping. And at one point, Dex is like, do you want to sit in a chair? And he's like, boy, would I ever. And he's like, I'd love to. I've never sat in a chair before. Are these for arms? And you know what I mean? Like, he's so pure and beautiful and helpful and friendly. And Dex is just being a jerk for kind of no reason other than because they shouldn't be instant friends. Yeah. And I was like, there's just, the reasoning didn't make sense to me for why they wouldn't be friends. Right. And it was just annoying to me that Dex was being shitty. Yeah. I was like, why are you being rude to this really friendly robot? Like, nice. You were not rude to anyone when you were a T-Monk. Now you're just being rude because the plot needs you to be rude. Yeah. And then we'll get over it probably. That's what I kept reading, and I was like, they better get over this and just become friends, because if they were, this would be nice. And then obviously that does happen. Yeah. So the middle part was a little bit, I was like, I'm annoyed. But then it all finished off, and it was so beautiful. And I absolutely would love to read the second book. Okay. Yeah, so that is what I finished reading. And the book that I'm currently reading is Saving Time by Jenny Odell. Oh. So, people may recall that last year I read, what's the other one called, Raylene? How to Do Nothing. Yep. I read How to Do Nothing a couple of years ago. Actually, no, I read it in 2020. Yeah. Good Lord.
Time is flying. Flying?
It really, flown. It's flying.
Exactly.
So basically, this is her new book that just came out, like, literally a couple weeks ago. And I'm listening to it on audiobook. I've read the prologue, and I'm partway through chapter 1. So far, I am not liking it. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year, because I really liked How to Do Nothing. But so far, I'm just bored. I'm so bored. And it's like, just feels ironic, because I'm like, this is a book about time, about like how people nowadays like don't take the time to do things properly. And all I'm wishing is that the book would be faster. I'm like, oh, why is this? What are we even talking about? Like, I feel like no interesting points have been made yet. Just a lot of kind of waffling about, which, like I said, feels ironic. Yeah. And I will say, like, A Psalm for the Wild Built, probably the physical version is like 150 pages, something like 180. It's like very, very short, maybe shorter than that. And it was sort of a book about time, like, about taking your time to be one with nature and to, like, have a tea ceremony. If you're feeling down, don't just push through your pain. Like, no, sit down, have a moment, have a cup of tea. Yeah. Whereas Saving Time is, like, supposed to literally be about time. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about here? So that's very interesting.
How many hours is the audiobook?
11! Ah! I really think that her first book was, like, 6 hours on audio.
Yeah, I feel like a book like that should have, a few good points and just kind of like bang them out, and then the book is over. This waffling really about that you're describing makes me really upset for you about this book.
I really agree, Raymond. I really agree. It should not be happening. All right. You're up. What did you read? What are you reading?
Yes. So I read a very random book, and I'll tell you why, but first let me tell you what the book is. So the book is Sombrero Fallout by Richard Brautigan. Richard Brautigan was born in Tacoma, Washington in 1935 and died in 1984. He wrote 10 novels, 2 collections of short stories, and 4 books of poetry. Sombrero Fallout was his 7th novel, published in 1976. Many authors, including Haruki Murakami, have cited Brautigan as an inspiration for their work. So, this is such a random book, and I think I mentioned it on Book Olds, like, 2 years ago, because one of my friends, this is the whole story of how this book came into my life. So one of my friends bought this book, told me about it, she read it, and then she gave it to me as a birthday gift, because I kind of was like, expressed jealousy. I wanted the book. Like, she was like, oh, I found this at a thrift store. Yeah. And it has a cat on the cover. And it's also, I forgot to mention the subtitle. It's called Sombrero Fallout, a Japanese novel. So she was like, this seems like something you would like. And then she read it and then passed it along to me. And now it's one of my other friends' birthdays in a couple of days. And when I got this book for a birthday gift, she was jealous that I got it.
Oh my God.
And so I decided I should read it and then pass it along. So this book is now being passed from friend to friend to friend, which I think is really fun. So that's how I ended up with the book.
That is so cute.
So I read it and I liked it, but it was just like a weird little book. So I really enjoyed the beginning and the ending, kind of similarly to how you felt about your book. But basically how this book starts out, we've got this main character who is a humorist, like he writes humorous novels, and he recently was broken up with. He was with this woman for 2 years and she broke up with him. She's like, I don't want to be with you anymore. And so he's really sad and just kind of like wandering around his apartment, like, what do I do? And so he's like trying to write, not really having success with that either. And he starts this story that's about a little town where a sombrero falls out of the sky randomly. And all these people are like, what's going on? They touch it. It's really cold. And they're like, this is strange. But then this is like maybe 1 or 2 pages at the very beginning of the book. And then the author is like, oh, this is crap, and rips it up, throws it into a garbage can. But then the story kind of keeps happening by itself. Like it kind of continues without him having written it, if that makes any sense. So the book is like half the story that's happening within his garbage can, and then the other half is him just like going about his life, thinking about this woman that he misses. So I really liked the sombrero story. I feel like the sombrero story was super interesting. Like it starts out super tame, and like, you know, there's a mayor of the town who's like, oh, I should figure out what's going on. And there's these other guys that are like, oh, this sombrero, like what would happen if we picked it up? And then it slowly starts getting crazier and crazier until by the end of the book, it's like this absolutely redonkulous story. And so I really liked that kind of through line throughout the book. But then the story about the author, the guy that wrote this story, is kind of dull and kind of weird. Like he's obsessed with this woman that broke up with him, but he's more obsessed with the fact that she's Japanese for some reason. Like he's constantly like, I miss her Japanese hair and her Japanese face. And it was just like kind of creepy. And I'm like, yeah, okay, it was written 50 years ago. It was a different time, but still it just kind of icked me out a little bit the way that was written. So I wasn't a huge fan of that part. So it kind of took me out of it a little bit. And I wish the story was just about the sombrero. So that's where I land on that. But yeah, I'm glad that I finally read it though, and I'm able to pass it along. And it is kind of a cat book. Like I might have kept it in my collection as a cat book, but it's only vaguely, like the cat just belongs to the woman, and he's mentioned a couple of times. And yeah.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't enough for me to keep it. So I finished that, and I have now I'm reading 2 books actually. So first up, I'm listening to the audiobook for Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman, which I just got recently. So it felt pretty cool that I was able to start that really quickly. The audiobook is super great. It's obviously read by Neil Gaiman. He always reads his audiobooks. And I am, I think, 11% of the way into it. And I've only just gotten into the first short story because the whole beginning of the book is a ginormous introduction, which I actually really liked. Like that sounds like, it would be boring, but it sort of starts out with a regular introduction, and then Neil Gaiman goes through story by story and like talks about the inspirations behind it, or like, you know, what he was doing in his life when he wrote that story, and like just like any kind of interesting information about each story. And so now that I'm listening to the actual stories, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember what he said about that one. That's kind of fun. Like that was drawn from his real life. And so I'm really enjoying it so far. But yeah, I've only actually listened to 1.5 of the stories, but so far so good. Really, really enjoying it so far. So I recommend that. And that's actually kind of a fun thing for me because I've had very mixed success with Neil Gaiman. I don't know if I've really talked about him much on the pod, but I love Coraline. Like that's one of my favorite books from childhood. And then I also read, what other book of his did I read? The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Oh, no, I've read that too. And both of them I just thought were okay. Like, I didn't love either of them, but I didn't, like, hate them. So in the back of my head, I'm like, do I like Neil Gaiman? Like, I don't really know. But I'm glad I'm giving him another shot because so far I'm really liking this. He's kind of reminding me of Ray Bradbury a little bit, like in certain ways with the short stories. So I feel like this one is going to work for me, and it's making me want to try reading American Gods or Good Omens, because I know those are more of, like, I think I might be more into his adult books, and reading them as an adult might be helpful as well. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I definitely have. I have really liked all of the ones I've read.
Most people do.
I've read Graveyard Book, Coraline, Stardust, Ocean at the End of the Lane. And I think there's another. I feel like I've read 5.
Neverwhere?
No, I haven't.
Nancy Boys? Just thinking of other books. Smoke and Mirrors is another short story collection that he's talked about in this one.
Why do I feel like there was one other one? I don't remember. But anyways, I have liked everything I've read of his.
Sandman.
And I haven't finished it though. The one I really The one I'm wanting to read is Neverwhere, because I think that's the one that's set in London, and I'm like,
okay.
Yeah, I should do that.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know what? It's possible too that the thing that was missing for me is the audiobook aspect. I feel like his books might just be, for me, better on audio.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to this at like
audio.
1 time speed. Normally I listen on like super sped up for audiobooks, but when I like an author's voice, it's like I need to let them tell the story in their natural speed, and it's making me enjoy the book quite a lot. So I may have to go for that. I know American Gods is full cast, which people have recommended that to me many times, and I'm sure Good Omens is just great. And you haven't read Good Omens, right? I know you've seen the show.
No, okay. I haven't. Okay. No, I haven't. I have listened to all of his books on audio because what are we talking about?
Yeah, it's the only way.
His voice is unbelievable. Coraline, though, was so creepy as an audiobook. Ooh. I think I've talked about this before, but there's like these chanting rats that sing these awful songs, and whoever the heck was narrating it was just like singing this horrible raspy chorus of rats. It was horrifying. But guess what I just did?
Did you get one of them on your e-reader?
I just got Neverwhere on my e-reader.
Do they have it as an audiobook though? Do you think you listen to it?
Yeah, good cue. I didn't check for that. I just opened it up and there's already a photo of the London Underground, the
cool. Tube. That could be a really great next read for you.
Oh,
this is a fun time. You just finished your book. Did you say earlier today? So you're like in this limbo. I guess you did start the Jenny Odell book, but you're not enjoying it. So I feel like you should start.
I'm not really enjoying it, and it says an audiobook. So that's going to happen in a very specific, slow way. Yeah. Ooh, here I am having already a fun old time with my new book.
There you go. You know live on the pod.
It starts with introduction to the text. Neil Gaiman just loves an introduction.
He sure does. He just loves to talk. We love that for him.
So funny. That's really cute.
But yeah, I'm also reading another book. So that's my audio book.
What is it?
And I got a book from the library. So look at us go. We're library gals. I often put books on like my for later shelf with the library because I'm like, I don't want to put it on a hold now because if the hold comes in, I'm going to get scared. I won't have time to read it. Yes. But I happened to put a hold on this book and it came in for me and it just happened to be at the right moment. I had just finished Sombrero Fallout and I was like, sweet, I can start this new book like today. And that book is YN by Esther Yee, which was recommended by Monica a couple of weeks ago. I think that's when I placed the hold on it. I was just like, you know what? This sounds great. It was like an instant, I need that in my life. And so I just got it and I was trying to finish it last night, but I fell asleep. So alas, I will have to do my full review next week. But it's like a strange little book. It's super bizarre. So the main character is this woman who is 29 at the beginning of the book, and she lives with her roommate, and her roommate is really into this Korean boy band, this K-pop band. And she is about to go to a concert, and the main character is kind of like, ugh, why would anybody be so obsessed with those people? Like, that makes no sense at all. And then the roommate ends up having an extra ticket because the person she was supposed to go with ends up not being able to go. And she's like, do you want to come with me? It's a free ticket. Like, what the heck? Let's go. And she's like, begrudgingly kind of goes along and instantly falls in love with one of the people in the band. Like, she just like sees him and is like, whoa, I love that guy. And she just like falls like super deeply into obsession for him really, really quickly. But then she starts, in a way to, I guess, feel closer to him, she starts writing fan fiction, which is where the title YN comes from. As Monica explained, YN stands for your name. That. So this is a whole like genre of fan fiction where people just put in YN so you can kind of insert your name, insert yourself into the story almost. And so she starts writing these YN stories and kind of connecting with other people in the fandom. But then she's just starting to kind of go off the rails a bit. Like, it's getting to a point where it's like, oh, this person is maybe an actual lunatic. And it's like, I don't really know for sure where it's going. And it's got this kind of surreal aspect as well. Like, the way it's written, sometimes you're not sure if something is really happening or not, or if something is happening like in one of her fan fictions, or if this is real life. Like, sometimes the lines are kind of blurry, so it's a lot more surreal than I expected, which I'm liking. But it's just kind of strange. It's not just like a straightforward story about someone who is obsessed with this guy. You know, it's a little bit
Interesting.
stranger than that. So I was expecting it to be kind of like Idle Burning, but it's not like it at all because the way it's written is like completely different. But yeah,
okay.
it is interesting and I'm enjoying it, but it is
all
weird.
right. We'll see how it ends.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to our final segment. Did you guys hear just that little grunt I just did where I'm like, oh God, I'm sitting on the floor because it's like this table situation is a little weird in this Airbnb.
I can't wait for you to be able to sit at your desk again. That'll be so nice.
Me too. Good Lord. But yes, that brings us to our final segment, book news.
Ooh.
So I wanted to highlight 2 pieces of book news today that I think are a really fun, big deal. Okay? All right. So the first one, actually, I'm going to do 3. You know what? I'm going to do 3.
Okay.
The first one, it depends. You can help me remember if I've talked about the first one, which is the fact that we now have a trailer for Tiny Beautiful Things.
I don't think we've discussed it. We might have, but I feel like
we have either. I feel like we haven't, and I wanted to because we talk about the book so much on this podcast that I feel like this is important book news for the Books Unbound community. So basically, Raylene and I have talked a lot about our deep, deep love for Cheryl Strayed, and obviously Cheryl Strayed is of Wild fame, hiking the PCT Reese Witherspoon adaptation.
Yep.
So she clearly became actual friends with Reese Witherspoon through making that movie.
That's cool.
Because you often see her in Reese Witherspoon's Instagrams and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, they're buddies. So now they have made a version of her other book, Tiny Beautiful Things. So Tiny Beautiful Things is a stunning book I recommend to everyone. I genuinely cannot imagine someone not loving that book.
Yeah.
So this is a collection of the column that Cheryl Strayed wrote for a long time called Dear Sugar, where, an advice column. People would write in with their problems and she would respond with advice. But it's just, that sounds so simple, reductionist of this beautiful, beautiful book that's just like perfection. Anyways, they announced that they were doing an adaptation of it and I was like,
what does that even mean? Yeah.
What does that even mean exactly? Because it's like an advice column. I don't know exactly what they mean. And now we've seen the trailer, and now we know exactly what they mean. So the main character is Catherine Hahn, and she's clearly playing like an auto-fiction version of Cheryl Strayed. She is Cheryl Strayed. She's not Cheryl Strayed. A lot of the life circumstances are the same as Cheryl Strayed's, but some of them are not. Yeah. So they've basically made a character out of Cheryl Strayed's life, and she is writing this column. Her life is a mess in the movie, and and then one of her friends is like, "You're such a good writer, you should write this advice column." And Catherine Hahn, as Cheryl Strayed, is like, "Why would I write an advice column? My life is a mess." And that's kind of the truth story of it, is just like, is how interesting it is that Cheryl Strayed, according to her, had such a messy life. Who is she to write this advice column? But we've read it. Best advice out there.
Yeah, she's great at giving advice. Possibly because her life is so messy,
Maybe, yeah, she's able to see through it. So that trailer is now out, and I'm still on the fence about it a little bit. I really like Catherine Hahn.
Me too.
I really like Catherine Hahn. I think she's really cool. But there are certain things there that I was a little like, not really sure how I feel about that. We're going to have to watch it to see.
Is it a movie or a show?
It's a show.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah. All right. Second piece of news. The Ken of the Reeds has finished. Did you see who the winner was?
I did. I'm also a little sad that you didn't do headlines.
Oh my god, I forgot to do my headline. Okay, wait. Let me
think of one on the fly, please.
Literally not going to stop recording. I'm just going to think of something. Oh no, that's really hard actually. No wait. It's right in my brain. Soaring news for Ducks by Kate Beaton. Ken of the Reeds awards her the winner. Thank you.
There you go.
There you go. Oh, that was pretty rough. Ducks won.
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say is that Ducks won. Yeah, it is awesome. I think I predicted that, right? I think we predicted
I think so. That. Yeah, you said that like it should and hopefully will or something like that, which I agree. And it's the first graphic novel to ever win Canada Reads, right?
Yeah.
Which is extra cool.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it was only the second one ever nominated, and now it's the first one to ever have won it. That's pretty cool. So basically, I don't really have much to say about it other than it won.
Yeah.
And that because I talked about it being nominated, I thought it would be fun to just wrap up that little narrative line there and say that it won. Like I said, I'm really not surprised. I just think that book really hit a nerve for Canadians in a really beautiful way. And I think it showed what graphic novels can really do, which is really exciting. But it won. This was literally yesterday as of recording, which is great. And the book it was up against was Station 11.
No way. I didn't follow it at all, so that's interesting.
Yeah, so the way that the show works is that it's like these every day they eliminate a book.
Right.
And so that at the end you're left with these two books that are like that the hosts have to debate. Yeah. And so it was Station 11 versus Ducks. And Ducks got it.
I'm glad
which
Ducks
is pretty
won.
cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Go Nova Scotia.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. Okay, our final piece of news. I'm trying to think of a headline. I'm sad that I didn't do them because I really do like doing them. I just totally forgot that I do that now.
Yeah.
No, I just want to be excited about Michael Cera. Michael Cera, Toronto and Canadian legend, is back for Scott Pilgrim the anime.
So exciting.
That is the most absurd thing I have ever heard. I think my headline would have had something to do with video games, like ka-ching, ka-ching, big win for the anime scene.
I think you're doing great.
There's something there. Okay, so Scott Pilgrim by Brian Lee O'Malley, I'm so sure almost everyone listening has heard of, but it was a graphic novel series that came out, I want to say the 2010s. But or like the 2000s. Yeah, the 2000s. Yeah. I
want to say like 2005.
I'm thinking like 2005 to like 2010 is like when the books came
out. Possibly, yeah.
So I'll double check this. Scott Pilgrim series, and when did the first one come out? Okay, yeah, 2004 and until 2010.
Wow.
Cool. Is what it says on Wikipedia. I'm not going to keep deep diving on that one, but basically, it's the story. It's set completely in Toronto because Brian Lee O'Malley, the author, is Canadian, and it's the story of Scott Pilgrim, and he wants to date this girl, Ramona Flowers, but in order to do so, he has to defeat her 7 evil exes. And so he must like do an actual fight against them. Yeah. So it's this really bizarre little mix of contemporary, like it's in Toronto. These are people in a band, like all of him and his friends are in a band and everything. But then all of the exes have superpowers and he's got to like go into these video game-esque fights in order to win. They made a movie of this, not just a movie. An incredible movie. The movie. The movie is called Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and it came out in 2010.
Wow. Makes you feel
God. Old. It does. Yeah, I remember it came out in high school.
That's cool.
So this movie is so much fun. If you've never seen the movie, I mean, I implore you to watch it. It's just such a happy movie. But basically, it's an adaptation of the books, and it has a cast. And me and Connor were talking about how everyone in that cast blew up. Like either that year, the next year, or a few years later. Like literally everyone in the cast. Aubrey Plaza is in. Like how Anna Kendrick. Yeah. Chris Evans, Captain America,
and Brie Larson. Yeah.
Brie Larson, Captain Marvel. Mary Elizabeth Winstead has gone on to do huge things. Kieran Culkin is the one in Succession, right? Yeah. Awesome. Everyone in, I won't go on. Yeah. Like the whole cast is literally huge. Yeah. And Edgar Wright had done some really big projects beforehand, but has also now gone on to do big projects afterwards. So it's sort of like this incredible, just beautiful movie. And now they have announced that the entire full cast of the movie and like Brian Lee O'Malley and Edgar Wright, like the original director and writer and everything, are all coming back for an anime version. We don't know how anime it is going to be.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it'll match the art style of the graphic novels a bit. It probably will.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking and hoping, because it's so cute.
Yeah, it is very cute. And
it's
unique.
very, very jolly. But it's just like, I was saying to Raylene, I was like, I couldn't have imagined a better thing.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely could not, if someone had said we're remaking Scott Pilgrim, I could never have imagined we'd get the entire cast and the director and the writer and
when I saw
Netflix
that.
And it's a series and it's like I couldn't have imagined something cooler and better. It just feels so exciting.
Right? And they'll be able to tell the full story too, because it is a 6-volume series and we got one movie, which I don't know how much of the books it covers, but it'll be cool to just like have the full fleshed out story.
Yeah.
But voiced by everybody. Like, it blows my mind that everyone came back.
It's so awesome.
It is awesome.
So I was so excited when I saw that as well. When I saw it on Instagram, somebody had like posted it or whatever. I was like, this is the coolest book news ever. I hope Raylene doesn't see that. And then I instantly was like, there's no possible way Raylene doesn't see that. Like, everyone is going to share this on their stories.
It was because of Aubrey Plaza that I found out.
Oh, okay. And then that night you texted me, you're like, look at this, this is crazy. I was like, yeah, it took literally 2 hours. Like, you found out instantly. There was no way.
The only way I would have missed it is if I just didn't go on Instagram for a couple days.
Literally, if you just hadn't gone online. There was no, because everyone's so excited about it, which is really fun. And I should have mentioned when it's scheduled to come out, but I don't think we know.
I don't know if it has news. Yeah, the announcement that Aubrey Plaza posted was just like all the people's names. And at first I was like, what is happening? Is there a sequel? Like, what is this? Because I could instantly recognize like these are all the people from Scott Pilgrim. But and then it just says that it's an anime. I don't think it had a date, but we'll keep tabs on that.
The director, Edgar Wright, says, I'm thrilled to say it's imminent with the whole cast back together and you are going to lose your minds.
Thank you.
That's so awesome.
Yes.
This is not a drill. This is happening, says Edgar Wright.
Incredible.
But yeah, I don't see anything about a date.
Okay.
So I'll keep everyone updated if we know any information, but it just says the unnamed Scott Pilgrim anime adaptation will debut soon on Netflix. And that's from The Independent. So I don't know how soon they mean.
Yeah, could be a while.
How fun.
But it's very cool.
So much fun.
Very cool.
So cool. All right. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much to everyone for listening and hanging out with us. And we're now going to go record our Patreon mini podcast, Movie Tub, where we talk about the movies we've seen. I'm going to talk about the Aristocats.
Whoa, that was unexpected.
What are you going to talk about?
Well, I'm going to talk about 2 movies that I did a little double feature the other night for 2 A24 movies, actually, so it's very exciting. I watched After Yang and Waves.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about those.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Well, if you want to check that out, like I said, it's on our Patreon, patreon.com/booksunbound. And we'll talk to you over there, or we'll just talk to you next week. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.